This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. As some of you know, I received a strike and removal of a video that I uploaded about the man who set himself ablaze outside of the Trump trial, the fake charade of a trial that's going on where they're just building momentum for Trump. The more they victimize him in the public eye, the more support he's going to gain from people with conservative viewpoints, because everybody could easily see how corrupt and sick and how much treason has been committed by our current government regime. So the guy on this screen is Max Azzarello. He's the one who's no longer with us. It's very clear that this is a Manchurian candidate, and the government creates these events for a reason, okay? And you don't realize subliminally on a level of a subconscious mind how these stories actually work, right? So let's start with the fact that he took this very staged photograph, okay? This is just a guy walking the streets. There's no reason at the time that anybody should take a photograph of this man, but this photo was taken where you could see the hair over his eyes, doing all-seeing eyes symbolism. It's a very staged-looking photograph. This person didn't take the photo knowing that this guy was going to set himself ablaze. 2 minutes later, this person clearly took a photo deliberately because this is the photo that's been plastered all over the mainstream media. And it's important to note because what the sign says. Trump is with Biden, and they're about to fascist coup us, right? And then, of course, this guy has had previous arrests, and you can see his mugshot. Look at his mugshot, doing all-seeing eye symbolism, doing what is called the serpent's tongue. Maybe you've seen a lot of celebrities do this. It's called the serpent's tongue. This is a satanic gesture that they do. This is part of the signs and symbols that we see celebrities use out in the open that they get away with because nobody thinks any further than they're being silly. Oh, they're putting a hand over their eye. They're playing peekaboo. Oh, they're putting a finger over their lips. Oh, they're sticking their tongue out. These are all Freemasonic. These are all satanic gestures that they make to one another. It's all coded gestures, right? We can see that this guy is clearly a government plant. So you ask yourself why? Well, think about what this story has done. Now, if this story reported that this guy was MAGA, it would be exploded even more so, play into the left-right paradigm. But what this story has done is garnered sympathy from both sides about this guy's mental health, right? This guy's mental health, because he actually believes exactly what I believe, which is exactly what the cure to this entire problem is, which is people removing themselves from the left-right paradigm. This guy wrote in his manifesto that, and this is deliberately done, this is a government putting truth out there. But when you put the truth out there behind somebody who is willing to set himself ablaze and then say to everybody that he had serious mental health problems, and they start looking at him and they start saying, oh, let me see what this guy was about. Why did he do this stuff? They go, oh, wow, that's too crazy of a conspiracy. And it's so crazy that this guy put no hope in the system at all, that he decided to take his own life because there is no hope. And that's what they want you to take out of this story. When you see people like me, to look at people like me and to correlate me with him. Somebody who believes that the government is in on it together, right? He called it a government Ponzi scheme. And they come out with his entire life story, which I'll read to you. Within 48 hours, not even, outlets in the UK, independent UK, other media outlets, have his entire life story. Not like, oh, well, here's the stuff that was in his pamphlets that are thrown around. We're talking how he got from A to Z, right? How he was a great guy who went down a rabbit hole because he started to read conspiracies online, including conspiracies about billionaires and how it's a billionaire conspiracy theory, and they're all working together to keep us divided. All truths, right? But when you put the truth out in plain sight, and then you put somebody who would do this to themselves and somebody who clearly doesn't seem like they're mentally healthy. There's videos out there of singing, "We need an effing revolution," all these ridiculous videos that he posted online, which any person, left or right, would see and go, oh yeah, he's a little extreme. He's a little bit further, and of course, too extreme, because so extreme that he did this to himself, right? And that's where the seed planting starts. Because in this entire thing that's going on, if you're in the left-right paradigm, you're allowed to speak. That's what we see. That's why there's no censorship and they pretend to be censored. Those people like Tucker Carlson, Russell Brand, Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, they're all plants to keep you trapped. The things that this guy was saying are 100% true, but when people out there start seeing the stuff that he's saying, because it's going to blow their minds at first. Nobody in the mainstream, nobody MAGA, they're not talking about this being a complete government coup. They're talking about this as if, oh, Democrats are out of their minds. They're supporting Ukraine. They're committing treason. Conservatives, Republicans are the way to go. Trump's going to save us from this mess. The whole mindset of coming to the realization that it's rigged on both sides is the mindset that would save us from this. Because, again, there's only about 1.2 million prisoners in this country. And how many people live in this country? I mean, as of now, if you do a Google search, it's 333 million.3. So it's perfect, right? You get your 333. But they couldn't imprison everybody here. Thus, there could be an actual revolution. It doesn't even have to be a violent revolution. When they hear revolution, people think of violence. To stop this from going forward, the people just have to disengage. And they have to all do it together. That's how you start a revolution. They want you to think it's some government staged insurrection or something along those lines. If the civilians realize they're being duped and they actually band together and they all say, you know what? We're not paying our taxes anymore to this government. All these people in power have to go. We could shut the entire thing down and restart it. It doesn't mean violence. It doesn't mean anything bad. It means good for all. It means the media is overthrown. It means all the propaganda is gone. But they don't want you to realize that. So they keep you in the left-right thinking that that's the way you're going to win, right? Why do you think these stories are out there about the IRS and about how they're going to come after people now? Oh, the government's hiring more IRS agents to keep people compliant. Because the only way to shut the system down is for the people to revolt. And that means stop participating in the system. Take the power away from these people by not participating in their government anymore, because they've clearly shown you that they're not serving you anymore. They're not serving you so much so. We're not even talking about prices of things and inflation, all, and all the stuff with our taxes, how high they've gotten and how they take our tax money and send it to other countries. Our government is literally telling us that they're going to leave borders open. And again, that's part of the psychological operation. They're doing this deliberately, and they're actually manipulating these stories. And on top of that, they're telling us that criminals are not going to have to pay consequences, right? And the more the media tells us that there's more crime, the more people out there who are dumbed down are going to go out there and commit crime. Because if you watch any of these news stories, the media is literally telling you can go commit crime and not be arrested. This is all deliberately being done. So they're destroying infrastructure, and they're actually destroying our way of life. In fact, any of these stories about home invasion where the person defends their private property and attacks a home invader or does something to somebody who breaks into their home where they have children inside, we're seeing these people get prosecuted, okay? Now, the whole system is corrupt in every aspect. The left and right working together, the court system, etc. The civilians need to stop it from going any further forward. But if you invest in the left-right, then it continues to go the way that they want it to go. They want you to think that by you being a Republican and voting conservative, that you're going to break away from this stuff. But all you're going to be is getting herded into what they want. This is part of problem, reaction, solution. They want you to garner more support for Trump. They want you to invest hope in Trump. That's the point. So this story, back to it, is clearly a staged story. Okay, this is clearly a Manchurian candidate. You have a stage photo. He's looking right in a camera lens, doing all-seeing eye. He's got his hair over his eyes, mugshot, doing the same all-seeing eye symbols. I mean, this guy was awake at all to what was going on. Clearly, if you know the left and right is fake, you know that this is a spiritual war. You know that this is a psychological war as well. You wouldn't be doing all-seeing eye symbolism. In fact, if I ever went out public, I would make sure every single day that I never slipped up. I wouldn't even probably itch my eyeball so that somebody would have the opportunity to take a picture of me and tell everybody out there. So to do this deliberately on the streets for a stage photograph before you're about to do this to yourself, to do this deliberately, especially during a mugshot, obviously is their calling card, right? And then if you look at the pamphlets he threw on the ground, the true history of the world, right? They show you these pamphlets. I joked in the video that got removed. I said, I wouldn't be surprised you open this pamphlet up. It had the logo to my website on it, right? And I can't say what the website is because as somebody who was one of the bigger people out there trying to stop this movement, I've been completely silenced to the point where I've had to rebrand myself. Okay, think about that. Rename yourself. Nobody's ever had to go through something like that. It's unthinkable. And not only once, I've done it about 80 times, right? So when you do that about 80 times, eventually they're going to not be able to find you. But even after like 2 times, they're not going to be able to. So, I mean, even if you had my thing in there, it would only be to remove my website. But joking aside about me being in his pamphlet, what this does is when you look at the whole realm of conspiracy, right? When you read the article, they deliberately have his whole story. He's a great guy. He suddenly went downhill. He was committed to a mental institution. He was in a mental home, and he's been screaming about he had political views that that are not mainstream. right? Which is exactly what political views that aren't mainstream. He called our government and the world government a Ponzi scheme. And then all the other talking points in there are about how the elections are fake, how the government is gaslighting us, how it's a fascist world coup. And you go down and down and down, and there's paragraph after paragraph after paragraph about his backstory, how he stumbled upon conspiracy, right? How he was really a great guy. But then he got in a rabbit hole of conspiracy online. And this is to brainwash people who find channels that are like mine, not mine specifically, because I don't matter anymore. That's clear from the damage that they've done. See, people talk about them coming and whacking me. They used to say, oh, this is way more effective for them to do than having to do something like that. Because the more reach, the more they take us apart from one another, it has more of an effect than doing anything like that to someone like myself. They continue to remove communities of people who are like-minded. And by like-minded, I mean people who are trying to unite the two sides. And that is what I'm trying to do. Okay, I know people out there, I bash both sides, and I obviously bash the liberal mindset because there's no critical thinking going on. But it doesn't mean that they're not good people. It doesn't mean that they're not under mind control. They look at me and they go, because they have this narcissistic tendency that's been built up inside of them, which the government has deliberately done. That's how they create barriers and walls. They look at me and they think that I'm trying to say that I'm smarter than they are. They don't realize that I was stuck in this too. I was duped into this whole thing too. I went through the school system. I went through college. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what it was. Like I used to say, right? There's something terribly wrong with the world we live in, but you don't know what it was. Well, I figured out what it was. And a lot of us have figured out what it was. And we want to help people figure it out. Your mental health, the physical health that you're having, all these things will be resolved if we stop this. The 5G towers come down. The radiation exposure stops, right? The chemtrailing stops. The poison in the food stops. Them sabotaging our farming system. It stops. Them brainwashing you, telling you that meat and all these things are bad for you. It stops. But as long as stories like this are out there, where there's clearly planted stories, people come across us and then they go, whoa, this guy was so far extreme. He actually doesn't even support Donald Trump. He thinks that he's in on it. That's way too far. Why is it too far to believe that? You wouldn't know any of this stuff. You wouldn't feel this way. All these people who are anti-Trump and all these people who are anti-Biden, you wouldn't feel this way unless you were getting gaslit on both sides. Gaslit on the conservative side into seeing how corrupt this government is, telling you, they don't have to tell you where your tax money's going. They're deliberately telling you that they're throwing our money at Ukraine, trying to give them an army and build their army and sending them our weapons while telling us that we can't have weapons. All this stuff that drives people nuts, they're deliberately doing it. They would never have to tell you this. This doesn't have to make the news. Every single move that happens in Congress doesn't have to make the news. They deliberately do it so that you want to separate from each other. And what you should want to do, and what everyone should be doing, is separating from this government. This government should be held accountable, the Republicans and the Democrats, not for wasting our tax money, for treason, for turning their backs on the American people and trying to sabotage our infrastructure. And eventually this leads to imprisonment. Doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or black or white. I can't emphasize this enough. So stories like this, they circulate after this happens, right? Everyone goes, what about that guy out there? Oh, is he just some crazy MAGA guy who was trying to protest in support of Trump? Oh, no. He was so far gone. He didn't support Trump or Biden. He, in fact, called it a carnival. He uses all these kinds of words that will make people just go, oh, yeah, he's nuts, right? He was talking openly about, here's one of the little points from the article. They even go into the outbreak, right? Oh, he says that the outbreak was all set up, right? And obviously the majority of people know what the outbreak was about. But then it goes on to say things about cryptocurrency, right? Which people don't realize is part of their trap. They feel like they're free because they don't think further than going, well, the Federal Reserve is corrupt. And they don't realize, although they say it's unregulated so that you do go to cryptocurrency. You think it's unregulated? Are you joking me? They're going to hit the cryptocurrency overnight. That's going to be drained out and everybody's going to go broke. And you're going to go, oh, the government's going to, well, we weren't a part of it. So you are, we don't have to give you $250,000 back or anything like that. You're just screwed because you put your money in something, right? And the more trust people build into that over the years, the more they're going to put their money into it, seeing, oh my gosh, I'm going to become a millionaire investing in this. Well, of course you are. But you better take that money out and buy food and water with it and stock up. Because you could have 10 million in the account, it's going to go to zero. It's just a matter of when. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're dumb, like, oh, it's a crypto. People think that they're smart investing in it because they're making money in it. They want to make millionaires overnight because they're going to pull the rug out from underneath you. The government wouldn't make you a millionaire overnight unless they were planning on just completely nuking you. Okay, the one thing the government wants to prevent is actually people making money and then taking their money and building up something that could stop this government from continuing forward with what they're trying to do to everyone. So people out there are going to get nuked. Their money's going to get nuked out of it. So this guy talks about cryptocurrency, and he talks about how it's a criminal government, the cryptocurrency is rigged, and he's right about it. He's right, but he's a government plant that's putting truth out there by design. And when you put truth out there and you put it next to somebody who would do something so horrific to themselves, everybody out there will look at all the stuff that he says as completely lunatic. And what it will do is ultimately keep people in the left-right paradigm. That's what it will ultimately do. People aren't going to see this and go, wow, maybe he was onto something. Maybe the left and right is working together, right? They're not going to do that. They're going to go, this guy's out of his mind. Look at all the stuff he did. So any thought that you might see when you find a video, like, people stumble upon this channel, and they're like, oh, what is this guy talking about? Oh, he's talking about the left and right working together and how we need to unite together. We need to put all differences aside, realize that they're gaslighting the crap out of us, and realize this is being done by design for problem, reaction, solution. Oh, wait a minute, though. But he sounds a lot like that guy who set himself ablaze. I don't want to hear that stuff. That's the point of it. And people out there go, no, that's not the point of it. That doesn't do anything. It does. It does. He's been posting a long history of conspiracies online, railing against the rich and powerful. These are all bullet points from the articles that came out 48 hours later. It sure did a lot of investigative research in 48 hours about the guy. He labeled the outbreak as an economic doomsday device. He said what he did was an extreme act of protest. He was going on and on and on about these people who like children who are in power, which is all true. It's incredible. It's incredible because I've talked about this over the years. Every single one of these events that occurs is going to be staged, and they're all going to have the same talking points. How many times are we hearing these stories about somebody who's going bang bang at a school or going bang bang at a mall or doing this to innocent people he's never met? And then it all ties into conspiracy. Oh, he's obsessed with conspiracy, right? Oh, he had mental health problems. Because they don't want to have anybody who believes that the government's tyrannical and sold us out to be armed. And ultimately, the mental health is going to tie into people like me and you, and they're going to say, oh, this guy set himself ablaze. This guy has the same beliefs. We got to make sure that people like that don't have weapons or anything else. And all people like me are trying to do is wake people up. And the government knows this because there's so many more of us. And if there's actual leaders out there and people who could speak clearly and help wake people up, it's very damaging to them. And that's what I've always been to them. So this story is completely fabricated. And all you have to do is look at the symbolism. Signs and symbols reveal everything. He's standing there holding this sign. Then again, it reads, Trump is with Biden, and they're about to fascist coup us, right? And then you just see, you all see how he deliberately has the hair over the one eye. And you could say, well, maybe his hair was just falling over his one eye as he looks right into the camera lens, right? This person took a staged photo of him. He's looking in the lens, so it's a posed shot, okay? Think about that. If somebody takes a picture of somebody out somewhere, they're not posing. If he was out there just screaming and holding the sign up, then there wouldn't be him looking right in the lens. He's looking right in the lens, which means somebody said, hey, I want to take a picture of you. Can you, and I'm going to give it to the New York Post, New York Times, etc. They had no idea that in 5 minutes from then he was going to set himself ablaze, right? Or they would have stopped him. It wasn't a friend, so it was staged photograph. So you know that the hair on his eye was deliberately there. But all you have to do is look at his mugshot to know, the truth, right? And then his manifesto that's thrown around all over the place, right? And everything in there is all the talking points that people like me and you talk about. That's the one talking point that they don't want the public to realize, that it's all fake, because you could break free from it. You could break free from really what it is it's the shackles of mental imprisonment, because all of this stuff that they're doing that's driving everyone nuts, it all boils down to the left and right. Okay, because you're investing the left hates the right, because they're gaslighting them into thinking that, they hate them, they're bullies, they're this, they're that. Okay. And they want to take away their all mind control tactics. They want to take away their reproductive rights. I don't even need to get into it, right? And the other side feels the same way. Oh my gosh, these people are trying to grind on our kids and our local libraries. And all we would have to do is say, well, who's initiating this? Who's putting and plastering these stories out there so they could create a formulated viewpoint? This world viewpoint we have all comes through the media. You wouldn't know any of this was going on unless they wanted you to. You wouldn't know about the border ever for Republicans. You would never know about it unless the government wanted you to know. And the point that they want you to know is they want to drive you nuts. so that you go divided. They want to divide us into two countries, and they're going to, as long as people stay believing in the left, right, and they'll still have full control over everybody. That's why they're doing it at such an extreme level, and they're doing it for 2030. It's going to happen by then, okay? There's going to be mechanisms in place, and people go, well, I won't fall for it. I'm not going to sell my home and move into a conservative state. You will when the next round of mandates come. Okay, that's why this treaty that's coming up in May, which I'm talking about over on the website, it's very important to keep an eye on. Because when this stuff happens again, where they say you can't even go to the grocery store, you're going to be forced into it. Because there's going to be different laws and rules in red states versus blue. Okay? And people out there who are Dems, they're going to start taking away gay rights. They're going to say gays can't get married. They're going to be forced into compliance, just like we're going to be forced into compliance. Because the one thing that all of us aren't going to do is we're not going to put poison in our bodies. Right? We're not going to. Okay? So that's how they're going to force us where they want to force us. But my concern is that we're sitting ducks. And what really should occur here in this free country is these people all should be arrested for treason. Okay? We have criminals that are in jail who they're letting out. They're freeing up prison cells, and they're freeing them up for people like us. But think about that. If there's 1.2 million prisoners in this country, and there's 333 million, imagine 150 million people just didn't participate anymore. No taxes, no et cetera. And you might say, well, that'll destroy the country because they're not doing anything with your tax money in this country. They're not helping out, roads and all these things that your tax money are supposed to go towards. They're giving your money away because they're trying to kill off the middle class. This is basic New World Order Manifesto 101, right? So it's not about the fact of going, I don't want to pay my taxes. It's about saying they can't imprison everybody. If the majority of the country just takes their power away, you take their power away by not voting. You take their power away by not complying anymore. You set up your own government outside of their government because their government isn't real. It's a circus. It's a sideshow. And people out there, well, that's a dangerous mindset. What's dangerous about it? If the government isn't working for the people anymore and all the government's doing is dividing the people deliberately and people realize that, it stops. But we continually empower them every single day by partaking in this, by believing in it. I've talked about it for about 6 years, and it's more rampant than ever now, okay, in regards to the left and right. Like, watch this stuff going on in Congress. And I said, all they're going to do is spin you in circles. As time elapses, this just builds up more and more anger, more and more, oh, look, the Republicans are trying as hard as they can, but the Democrats keep overruling them, right? So they continue to believe in these people. And they're like, look, we're trying. We're voting Hunter Biden. Oh, the Ukraine money. We're trying. They just, the border. Instead of going, you know what, this is enough. This is enough. You're supposed to be doing. And they're like, we can't because of the current. We have to set up a new structure. We need a totalitarian Republican regime, and we need a totalitarian Democratic regime. And they don't realize that that's part of the problem. No, we don't need that. We don't need these people in power anymore because this United States of America experiment has been running pretty well. I'm not saying that I'm fully on board with the whole structure and the system the way it's been. But they're clearly sabotaging it. And the most important thing that you can do is not partake in it anymore and wake people up to both sides being rigged. But the more people get gaslit, they go, yeah, but if I don't vote, I might as well do the lesser of two evils. I might as well partake in it because what are we going to do? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they just continue to partake in it because the more gaslit they get, the more that they just get involved in this and get angry about it and want something to be done. And that something isn't going to be something that's organically done. It's something that's already pre-planned to be done because this election is going to divide us into two separate countries. They're telling you it's Civil War movies over the last 20 years. They've been gaslighting you. They've been prepping you, national divorce. There's all these trigger terms out there. And then just like I talked about with the stuff in Texas, that was all deliberately done with the border to talk about Texas is going to go against the federal government. These states are going to go against the federal government. Okay? They're not going to partake in it anymore. And you're going to think, oh, yes, Texas is doing what I want them to do. Yes, they're standing up, but they're not. It's a trap. Okay? And they want stories like this circulating. They want people doing insane acts like this, Manchurian candidates, so that if you hear this notion that both sides are working together, that you automatically think that that's the craziest thing possible. Right? But that's really the key to your awakening. And that's why the government created and fabricated this story with Mr. All-Seeing Eye himself, who strategically, of course, photographed himself doing the All-Seeing Eye multiple times and threw his pamphlets out there. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if my website's in there. But, we'll see. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure, it's in there. So they have an excuse to shut it down. Oh, and this is leading to mental health problems is what the guy's saying. Wow, it's so far to the realm of possibility to believe that they're working together when they're all in the same secret societies together. You know, they all argue in Congress, then they're out to dinner with each other, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, that's different. You know, that's business. Oh, right. It's a show. It's a show to gaslight you into what they ultimately want, which is two separate communist, totalitarian governments. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.